Hello, everyone. Before we get started with today's podcast episode, let's go ahead and go over some housekeeping rules. If you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, be sure to hit the follow notification button so Spotify lets you know when I release a new episode. As well, leave me a comment on what you enjoy about the podcast and give me a 5-star rating. This is how you can support my podcast. And the disclaimer is I am not a licensed psychiatrist or therapist. My suggestions and my guests are based on general knowledge and life experiences. If you're considering making significant changes or dealing with personal issues, seek and talk to a licensed mental health professional. So let's go ahead and get into today's episode. Blessed Day Reflection by Abia listeners. My name is Abia Grant, and we are here to reflect on our life journey. We will be discussing topics related to self-awareness, self-improvement, and mental health. Also, the purpose of this safe space is for us to be free to discuss the ups and downs, celebrate the wins, and talk about ways to improve the lows. So welcome to this podcast, and I hope you gain something from this time we share together. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? It is your girl, Abia Grant. Welcome back to another episode of Reflection by Abia. I hope that you guys are doing well and that you are having a blessed day. Guys, it is Daylight Savings Day. Today is March the 9th, and we have officially lost an hour of sleep. I don't know about you, but me, I am like, really? I'm already not getting enough sleep as it is, and now I'm gonna lose an hour. Oh man, I know I'm starting off the episode like really like, girl, that's what you're gonna jump into at the beginning of the podcast episode? Yes, yes. I am very sad that we are losing an hour of rest, but spring is about to come in a couple of weeks, and weather is starting to improve. So I guess it is what it is. But anyways, I hope that you guys are doing well. I hope that just life is moving in the way that you want life to move, and if it's not, then just try to figure it out. Life is gonna life. I was having a conversation yesterday with my mom actually in regards into that life is going to life. But overall, on my neck of the woods, I am doing pretty good. Everything is been good. I've been trying to DoorDash the past 2 weeks, and that's a complete fail. Just a combination, well, two main reasons. One being it's not a lot of money to be made. Uh, I guess, I don't know, it's just the economy is different and people are pinching their coins, but it's definitely been slow compared to prior times that I have dashed before. And in addition to the second one, or not in addition to, but to the second part, I'm not a spring chicken, and I need my rest. I need my rest, and being out in the streets, even though it can be good because you could make money or you could get extra steps in, like you could even treat it as like a form of cardio, not cardio, I guess. No, well, walking. Um, that can be a possible outlet, but I decided this week, this third week, we just not doing it. We just gonna have to figure something else out, and it's gonna be what it be. But that is pretty much what's going on with me this past couple of days. So let's go ahead and get into this week's podcast episode. I just want to begin by saying that this episode is going to get into what some people may consider as explicit content. This episode is going to touch on miscarriages. It's going to touch on outpatient procedures. So if you feel like this is not something you're comfortable hearing about, then I suggest for you to click on to another episode. I have many other topics that I do cover here on the podcast. So click onto one of those other topics that you haven't, listened to before, or podcast episodes that you haven't listened to before, and this just won't be the one for you. I just want to let you guys know that before I go ahead and get into um, today's discussion. So, as of right now, the running title for this episode or podcast episode is going to be Redefining Womanhood, the Rise of Child Free Black Women or Women. And when I was going through the notes and I was jotting everything down, this episode is kind of gonna encompass quite a few things, things about me, things about just people in my environment, and just society where a lot of women are, especially a lot of black women. I want to kind of just focus on black women. I can't speak for any other woman, but a black woman. And then if we, condense that more, I can only really speak for myself. But that's besides the point. I wanted to get into, this whole childhood situation. I'm a single person. Well, single in regards to that, I don't have any children. I just have my husband. And the reason why I wanted to get into this discussion is because what I've noticed when I, mentioned before about society, things are changing. And the black families or black households, things are changing. And a lot of women are questioning whether they want to have a child, or if they don't. And I think that, this kind of I want to say this kind of hits into like your late 20s, early 30s, possibly going into your 40s is when you're feeling this way, especially in your early 20s when you're trying to like really find yourself and figure out how, what is life going to look like in the next couple of years, because I tell all my, young counterparts, life is going to fly. You think that you have time and I'm telling you, it's going to fly. So a lot of times you're faced with these decisions in life, like what do I do? Especially like when you have a partner, maybe that partner wants to have children, or maybe they don't want to have children. This could be a very challenging thing to navigate. I know for me, it has been to some certain extent as well too. Just how I got into relationships and everything. So, as I mentioned before, a lot of women in their 20s and 30s are choosing to not have kids. And obviously, this is entirely their choice. People or women, black women, have the choice to do what they feel like they need to do for themselves. At the end of the day, they're going to be carrying the kid and they're going to have responsibility for their child. Obviously, God willing, the man is there and he's being a role model and support system, you know, to making sure the child has what they need to have. But I'll be honest with you, and it's not to take away from the male, everybody plays their part. And it's not to take away from the man's role, but a lot of the responsibilities of that child falls onto the woman. I feel like where a lot of women are right now in that 20 to 30 range is they're trying to find the right partner. I know for me, that was a big, like it was big. It was shining bright. And it was just kind of like I have to find the right partner to have a child with, because I just don't want to have a child with any old person. And then when it's time to raise that kid, I gotta, go through obstacles in order for you to do what you have to do. I also want to make sure that that person actually wants that child. I mean, obviously, there's cases where you may get pregnant and now you got to figure it out with this man. Like, what are you actually going to do? So, I know that is one of the main reasons why, women, black women, are questioning whether they want to have a child or not. Now, the next one is the responsibility of raising that child. I mentioned that before. A lot of the, day to day is going to fall on that woman. And that's a big undertaking. I think trying to make sure that child turns out the way that they that's going to be I'm trying to find the right word, that they're going to be a asset to society is a big undertaking. It's not easy raising a child. It's really not, because you have to make sure that child has everything that they have, not just for the moment, the day to day. It's also when that child gets older. You understand what I'm saying? So there's a lot of pressure that falls onto making sure the child is set up for success. Now, another one of the main reasons is financial considerations. It's expensive to raise a child. It's expensive to give birth to a child. I don't remember how much the figures were, but it's very expensive to make sure, that child has all the adequate things that they need, proper education. We could start from formula to diapers to, that's expensive. Yeah, and if you're not in a financial situation in order to provide for that child where you are already not, you don't have what you need to have for yourself, then now you have a child, and now you're having to be concerned about making sure that they have what they have or need. It's a problem. You understand what I'm saying? Of course you can, get like certain benefits and things like that from the city or state or, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like all that is falling on to, you and that woman, obviously that man as well too, but this is something to consider. So a lot of women are, deciding to, hold off. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into Reflection by Abia. Feel free to check out the podcast Facebook and Instagram page. The links will be available in the show notes. Let's get back to the podcast. Now, another one of the main reasons may be concerns about the environment. And when I say environment, I mean society. Um, how I was raised, and I know a lot, every generation talks about this, how I was raised, and the next generation, wasn't raised that way, and so forth and so forth and so forth. I hear it like from my mom, and it was different in her time than it was in my time. Society right now, it's with the availability of things. I know, I'm sorry to lie, but the availability of things is children have more access to things. And what concerns me is that that child gets into something that they shouldn't have gotten into. And I'm not saying that, hey, if that child, was birthed 20 years ago, they wouldn't get into things, but it's less likely that they would get into things because they don't have the access to get into things. So what I'm just trying to say is that the environment is different. Just around technology, just around exposure to other children. Things are quite different. So now one of the next bullet points that I have here is career aspirations. This is a major factor. A lot of women or a lot of black women want to build their career. Um, a lot of black women were older generations, I want to say, based on my understanding, were home taking care of the children and all the rest of that stuff. So now black women are finding their own footing and wanting to get out there and get into the work environment or whatever career that they want for themselves. And now, if they're having a child, they may have to possibly put that on hold or try to find some, balance between making sure the child has what, they need and you working on your career. I'm just going to be honest with you to keep it real. I'm not saying that, this is absolute or every situation is the same, but a lot of times women are having to stop their careers or not, excel the way they want to excel because they have to make sure that child has what, they need to have. They're having to postpone and things like that. Again, I'm not saying that everybody is the same case. I'm just saying it's more likely that things are going to happen in this way. So if you were able to be successful in your career and as well take care of the responsibilities at home of taking care of your child and nothing was affected, I'm happy for you. Awesome. But it's not always the case. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the next bullet point. Prioritizing mental well-being. This is very important. I feel like obviously mental health is more talked about now than it was couple of, just 10 years ago, just 8 years ago, 9 years, 9 and 10 is close to each other. But you understand what I'm saying? Like, this is mental health is more prominent in society now than where it was before. So with us making it priority, we are considering, like, are we mentally healthy enough to even give this child what they need? Mental health is very important because, again, where you are in your life is going to affect that child. And I strongly, you know I'm trying to find, I know I'm losing my words a little bit. I strongly want to stress that I think we sometimes think that what we grew up around doesn't affect us down the road and all the rest of this stuff, or doesn't affect our childhood, or whatever. But it does. It truly does. So we had to make sure that we are in the prime mental space that we need to be in order to make sure that child thrives. If you're screwed up, and I'm not trying to be rude, but if you got things going on, you may want to hold off having that child. You understand what I'm saying? Because now you're introducing that child into your stuff. So I'm just throwing that out there as, one of the things to consider now, or reasons why a lot of, 20, 30-year olds or just black women in general are considering not having children. Now, health concerns is also another thing. Now, this is something that I don't necessarily feel is talked about so much, but carrying a child is a lot. I I don't expect it for it to be easy. You understand what I'm saying? I have not carried a child to the length of other women, so I can't give the whole ins and outs and all the rest of this stuff. But I can imagine, what health concerns can develop just carrying that child. And then I'm just thinking about um, you going into the hospital and dealing with a certain doctors or certain tests that you have to get done once you get into your 40s, and you got to check for certain genetics and things like that. Like, there's a lot of moving parts. It's clearly more moving parts than what I'm stating here in this episode. When I researched this and I looked at what does womanhood mean, the top one was nurture, and it was having a child. And I don't necessarily feel like, yes, that is a primary thing, but that's not all. You know what I mean? Like, there's more than that, you know, just having a child. Like, I think it's more than that. Like I said, these are all valid reasons on why you may not want to have a child, and people have to do whatever is best for them, or black women have to do whatever is best for them. So now I want to get further into this discussion, and I want to talk about what led me to not having children thus far. I am 41 years old, and I again have not had a actual child. However, there are other things that we're going to, like I said, a little bit more explicit, that we're going to get into discussion about, that's gone on with me in my past and so forth. And I'm gonna be honest with you, it's I don't know how I feel right now. Like, I feel like it's a touchy subject as I am talking about it with you guys, but this is reality, and again, I'm just gonna talk about it. So Let's go ahead and get into it. When I was in my late teens, and early 20s, I thought about having kids, okay? A lot of my classmates in high school at that time were either had a child already prior to them graduating high school, and or they had a child right afterwards. That was the norm, okay? I went to school in the Bronx. I'm not saying that was a factor or anything, but just to throw that out there. And to me, it seemed normal. It seemed normal that you would have your child. I didn't necessarily think about having my child while I was in school. That was just not my MO. But I felt like, okay, after graduating, possibly college, possibly, what have you, that is when I would, start having children. Now, I figured that if I did get pregnant prior to, I guess you could say, my plans, then I'll just try to be the best parent. Well, let me correct that. I will be the best parent that I can be, okay, with what I knew at that time of my life. Now, in my 20s, I was pregnant 2 times, okay. Both of them were, I guess you could say, the first pregnancy was a surprise pregnancy. Like, it was a surprise, but it really wasn't a surprise because I wasn't using contraception at that point. But I got pregnant the first time. Now, the first pregnancy that I did have, I had a miscarriage. I lost the pregnancy. Um, I took the whole pregnancy test and all the rest of that stuff. Then found out I was pregnant. Went to the doctor. She did what she, checked. At that point, it was then stated. I think about the time I had went to the doctor, I was already bleeding, I want to say, and that bleeding was me miscarrying. Okay, so now went through the whole rigmarole, checking me out, making sure everything, passed and all the rest of that stuff. So that was that first pregnancy. The second pregnancy, I want to say, was probably, I want to say, it's like 20s, like maybe mid 20s. I want to say, give or take. And that pregnancy, I also miscarried as well too, within the first few weeks of the pregnancy. Now, that second pregnancy was different. I felt different. This was a pregnancy that I did want, and I miscarried. Now, in addition to miscarrying this time, the pregnancy did not, transition the way out my body that it needed to transition. So I had to have a DNC. I believe that's what it's called. Basically, what a DNC is a oral pill. Well, in my situation, I don't know if it's changed, but a DNC is a oral pill that I took that basically passed the child. So what it did is it created very excruciating cramps, and it will pass the tissue of the child. Now, I'm not going to go too much in detail to that because there's things that I remember that we just going to, put that. We're just not going to talk about that part of some stuff. But that's how that second pregnancy had went. And like I said, it that second pregnancy was one that I did want, and I felt very sad. I felt very um like, why am I keep losing these children or pregnancies? And I felt some sense of shame too. I'm gonna be honest with you. And I felt that basically, where I'm a woman and it's my responsibility to have a child. And I felt that I I wasn't a woman. Like, I was a woman, but I wasn't a woman because I didn't have a kid, or was not able to carry a child. Now, what my doctor did say at this time was that a lot of women do lose pregnancies, and sometimes they don't even realize that they did. Because sometimes it will happen around their menstrual cycle. I believe that's what she said. Again, this was in my 20s. It, this was years ago. This was 20 years ago. So I'm trying to remember everything that happened at that time. But I just recall her saying that a lot of women lose, have a miscarriage, and it's a part of the equation, and we just want to make sure that you're good, and everything. Like I said, I felt like I wanted to, and in that stage of my life, I was very much needing to love something in my mid 20s, early, mid 20s. I felt like I was in a need to love something. I felt like I was in a need to nurture something. I think that is a part of the reason why I wanted to, have the child. But also I was feeling like in the need of trying to find the right how much how to explain this. I felt like this I don't want to say it was my responsibility because it's not really what I'm trying to say. I felt like this would make me feel good. It does that I don't know if that makes any sense. Like this will be something of value, you know. And even at that point, the person that I was with, I was no longer with, after things transition and so forth. But as I continue to date, I continue to, into my 30s, I continue to have that mindset of you want to have something to love on, you want to have this person who's going to be dependent upon you, and this will be the answer to this desire within. Not realizing that I needed to work on me. You know what I mean? Like I needed to. I was. I was looking for love. Like yes, and I'm saying, and I felt that I could get love through this way. Like that unconditional love. And that's just pretty much how I rolled. It's over time that I realized that again, I needed to work on myself, finding my happiness, you know. And I try to, where I'm at now is I try to put that need or that validation into my day to day, things that I do, the podcast and other stuff that I do, because in essence, this is what I'm nurturing. This is what I'm putting my all into. I kind of feel like I'm not saying it's not too late to have a child, but what I'm saying is that I I've realized it's if I am to have a child, it will be because I really I don't want to say I desire to have the child. That is not due to other reasons. I'm having this child because I want to have a child. You know, obviously you want to love the child, all those things, but I don't want it to be on the back of something else that's going on with me. You know what I mean? So that's the reason why I mentioned like the mental health well-being is like I know my mental I have a lot in my brain that sometimes I make certain decisions in order to answer to that message in my brain, and that should not be the reason why I'm doing it. I should be doing it because it's what I not want to do, but what what's the best choice, or what is going to be an addition, a positive addition. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, does that make any sense? I felt like I said I'm all over the place. I started off with certain notes and I am so deviating. But one of the things I've, like I said, what I've realized is that having a child, it for me now, what I realize is that it does not define me being a woman, and it's taken me a while to kind of realize that. And me being a woman is just me being the best me I can be, being authentic to me, embracing me, enjoying me, you know, building me, being resilient towards me, being balanced for me, you know. I just imagine that bringing a child into, I'm better today than where I was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But bringing a child into some place where I'm trying to correct, like a place where I'm trying to grow, may not be the right place now. You know what I mean? Like, and I I have the tendency to be selfish. But this is me selfishly saying I don't deserve this. Like, does that make, I hope that makes sense. But I know I keep saying I hope it makes sense. But it's knowing that what's right. Yes, what I'm saying. And I'm not saying if I got pregnant tomorrow, okay, if I do get pregnant tomorrow, great. It is, what it is, and I would be responsible and do what I got to do, and I have a good male figure, who's a great father. Yes, and I'm saying, um, but what I'm trying to say is that and child is and in addition to the positivity, but you got to be good. You have to want this. You have to be in a you have to be, you should want to be, you don't have to be, you should want to be in the best position when you're making that transition, you know and this is just something that I feel like part of the reason of why some women choosing not to have children. I don't, like I said, I mentioned all the different factors, but I think some just don't want to have children because they don't want to have children. But I think some may be thinking like me, is like, right now you don't, I want to say you don't deserve, but you shouldn't. And it's a harsh thing to say, but it's reality. You know, that's reality. But that is my spiel. That is my spiel on redefining womanhood and finding my mojo, finding why, you know, just, why, just finding why. I may edit this out of this episode. I don't know, but yeah. Let me know in the comments your viewpoints on this, your viewpoints on, just, are you child free? What is some of your, reasons why, you're child free? Or if you have a child, why did you decide to have a child? Just let's have that conversation. I'm not saying either way is right or wrong. I'm not saying having a child is a bad thing. And I'm not saying that not having a child is a bad thing. You have to do ultimately what's right for you, you know, at the end of the day. So I just hope that, whatever decision that you do make is going to make sure that child progresses in the way that they need to progress. So, yeah. But guys, that is where I'm going to leave this week's episode. Don't have much else to say. So, stay blessed out there in those streets. Make sure that you treat others kindly out there in those streets. And God willing, I'll see you guys in the next podcast episode. Thank you for listening to Reflection by Abia. Let me know in the comments section what you thought about today's episode and share the podcast with your friends and family. The link will be available in the show notes.